Good afternoon, everyone. My name's James. I'm the minister here at Blackwood Church of Christ and just wanted to welcome you to the seminar. When we were spreading the word about this, we had a couple of people ask, is there a commercial interest in this? And I completely understand the question. You hear this sort of thing and you wonder who's trying to sell me what. But there is no commercial interest. This is just the work of two passionate locals. Andrew Tidswell has a lot of experience helping people with their homes and organisations work with the environment rather than trying to tame it, which also inevitably leads to using less energy in the home. He has a real passion for helping people to put small and big changes into place so that they can be more energy efficient in their homes. And Lyndon Palmer, another local, has discovered a passion in the last few months for helping people not get ripped off by their electricity company, which is a very worthy thing to do. He started helping some men here in the church review which deals from which companies might be able to save them money. And as we'll find out soon, they don't make it simple for you. You need to do a lot of in-depth research and understanding. And so he did that. He started working one-on-one with some of these men. And as you'll hear later, it led to some significant savings. And the thing about electricity is a kilowatt hour of electricity is the same from every company, isn't it? So you might as well be paying as little for it as possible. So thanks in advance for Andrew and Lyndon for helping us consider how to use less power and then pay as little as we need to for the stuff we do use. I'm going to invite Andrew up first to kick us off. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, James, and thanks for you all coming this afternoon. I would normally say I hope you get something out of it, but I'm sure you will learn a whole lot of tips and tricks to improve the energy efficiency of your home and to pay less in your bills. Both Lynn and I will be out in the foyer after the presentations if you want to come and have a chat to us about anything particular that you might want to ask, or any suggestions you have, or just want to chat particularly about other things that you can do, or things that you might have thought of that perhaps we haven't covered. So feel free. We're going to be around for a while after the presentations. So yeah, enjoy afternoon tea and a coffee, and feel free to come and have a chat. So initially, I'd just like to talk about understanding our energy use, what uses up energy, gas and electricity, but mainly electricity in the home. Some tips on how we can reduce what we use in terms of energy, and also some things we can do to make our homes much more energy efficient and some of these things will be perhaps cheap, or hopefully cheap. Some will be a bit more expensive, but we'll get to that in due course. There's a handout. Some of you may already have picked it up on the way in. There's over 70 tips in there, so I won't be covering them all in this session, but go home and read them and find out more you can do over the course of a year. What I'll be concentrating on, obviously, now is things to do in the winter time. I don't think we want to be thinking about how to be a lot cooler in this weather. So first thing is to understand our energy use. Now you probably can't read the fine print in that, but it's there's a copy of that chart out in the foyer on the table if you want to have a closer look at it. What it's showing is that the average energy use for an Adelaide home is 40% for heating and cooling, 25% for hot water, other appliances, lighting, and a small amount for standby energy. So I'll go through some of these in a bit more detail. So what it does show is that the biggest opportunity to make significant savings on our energy use is from heating and cooling. It's interesting to think back 40 odd years ago, most houses didn't have air conditioning, so hot water was the biggest user of electricity, unless you had some very inefficient bar radiators in those days. So it's interesting to see how things change. So saving energy on heating initially, which is something like 40% of heating and cooling, 40% of what we use in electricity and gas over the course of a year. This weather, obviously, it's heating, not cooling. The first thing to consider is whether you actually need to put the heating and cooling on in the first place. And I think that the obvious one to that is to dress appropriate to the weather. If you want to walk around in a singlet and shorts on a day like today and then put the heating on, no matter what form of heating it takes, that's obviously going to be costing you a lot of money. Dressing appropriately will radically change how much you actually need the heating on, and also the types of heating, which I'll get to in a moment. Probably about half of the year, if not more, you probably don't need any heating or cooling in a well-insulated and well-designed and well-managed home. Sadly, most of our homes are very badly designed so that they can be sieves to leak heat out. The trick is keeping the heat inside in the wintertime and keeping it outside in the summertime. So dress appropriately to start with, then keep the heat, then manage the way you heat. Keep it in the areas that you're using. This means looking carefully at how you operate doors, windows, curtains, and so that if you're heating a room and the air is flowing out through the rest of the house, your heating is going to be working really hard to heat a lot of the house that isn't actually being occupied. Similarly with windows, if you close the curtains, that will help keep the heat inside the room that you're in rather than let it flow out through particularly what most of us have got as single glazed windows. There are different types of heating, from gas, wood combustion stove, different types of panel heating using electric panels, and also oil panel heaters, as well as the little fan heaters. I've got, I'll leave this out in the foyer. You can have a look. There's a chart that the South Australian Government puts out which actually shows all the range of heaters that are available on the market, types of heating, and how many cents per hour it costs to run them. So it's very, very easy to see where the big energy guzzlers are and which ones you should be, I guess, applying first before you turn the expensive ones on. And then the bottom right-hand corner of that slide is the reverse cycle air conditioning, which is what I'll talk a bit about now. That's by far the most energy efficient form of heating and cooling in a house. It operates the same way as a fridge. It takes heat out of the air and pumps it into the house. The fridge does the opposite. It takes heat out of the fridge and pumps it to the outside of the fridge, which is why at the back of the fridge it's a lot hotter than the normal air. So a heat pump is probably, or is, the most energy efficient way of providing heating in a domestic situation. But they still need to be managed carefully. So if your first port of call is to turn it on and crank up the thermostat, it's going to gobble up a lot of electricity and it won't necessarily provide the right level of efficiency. So you need to understand how to operate an air conditioner when you're using it. So I guess while this weather, I don't want anyone to be cold or uncomfortable, and I know we love to keep warm, as you've noticed we've got air conditioners in this room. We did have them on earlier, but we've turned them off now because I think with the body heat that is being generated by you in the audience is probably good enough to maintain an even temperature in here. I guess we'll see in time whether that's the case after an hour or so. There are a lot of people who have different ideas of what a comfortable temperature is. Who lives in a house or in a workplace where everybody's got a different idea of what's comfortable? Yeah, most people find that we don't necessarily all agree on what a comfortable temperature is. So it is tricky to get that balance right. The health authorities generally say 18 degrees centigrade is the appropriate temperature for comfort conditions. Now, that might sound a bit low in this weather when people are used to putting the thermostat up well over the 20 degree mark. But bear in mind, for every 1 degree higher temperature you set your thermostat, that's using an additional 10% of electricity. So your bill goes up, electricity bill from the heating goes up by 10% for every 1 degree you set the thermostat higher. And also it's good to, when you find an appropriate temperature that works for you, is to keep it at that temperature. If you crank the temperature up initially to 27, 28 degrees, thinking that'll warm the room up faster, it won't. All it does is make the air conditioner work harder, and eventually it'll get to that temperature, but it'll still get to that temperature if you set it on 20 degrees. So manage the thermostat and the controls of your air conditioning very, very carefully. But also look at, as I said earlier, keeping the warmth there where you want it, not letting it flow outside or into other rooms. The next energy gobbler is hot water, and about 23% of our electricity or gas goes into heating water. So about a third of that goes in the hot water we use in showers, a third in the laundry, and a third for other users of hot water. So we can manage our washing machines by using a cold water wash rather than hot water. Who uses cold water in their washing machine? Oh, look at it all. Most people. Excellent. It makes really limited difference, if any, to the ability to keep your clothes clean, but it'll save huge amounts on the amount of electricity and amount of hot water that you will use. Water efficient shower heads. There are 3-star Wells rated shower heads. Does anyone know what they've got? Has anyone got a 3-star rated shower head? Oh. So it might be worth just seeing. They use about a half the amount of water as a normal inefficient shower head. So if you can restrict the amount of showering, but also you can make your showers more efficient in terms of their water use. The other thing you can do is to insulate hot water pipes from the hot water service. If they're outside, a good idea would be to insulate where they come out of the hot water service and go into the house. Because on a cold day, the hot water can cool down very quickly. You can lose a few degrees of temperature just getting from the hot water service into the house. If you have access to the ceiling space, it might also be beneficial to think about putting some insulation around the pipe in the ceiling space. Appliances generally use about 27% of electricity, so fridges and freezers, you can check the door seals just to make sure they are fitting tight, keep them cleaned regularly. If you've got a spare fridge stuck out in the garage or a shed, probably not going to have it on now, but in the hot weather that can be a huge energy guzzler in the hot weather if it's in a hot environment. So just check around to see what you've actually got in terms of appliances that are using electricity. With washing machines and dryers, make sure you spin dry the wash first really thoroughly before if you want to use a dryer. Obviously, external drying is good for the clothes, it freshens them up and it's free, but this sort of weather, in the morning is probably good to do the washing if you can and hang it out so you've got the benefit of the day with some sun and breeze to at least do the bulk of the drying of the clothes. Bring them inside and put them on a clothes airer in a warm room will help as well. In terms of cooking, a lot of people like gas cooking. Induction electric cookers are now available and provide just the same flexibility as people who love their gas cooktops do. So think about if you're wanting to change over things like appliances, like a cooktop, or getting a new one, just consider what is on the market now, because things have changed dramatically in the last couple of decades. Appliances, electronic appliances, computers, printers, etc., always good to turn them off if you're not using them. Computers in sleep mode is a handy way of saving energy. Standby power used to be quite a significant energy guzzler in years gone by. Not so much nowadays, because they are much more efficient in terms of their electronics. So they use 2 to 3% of the total house power. It's not that important to turn them off unless you've got a lot of them. What next is lighting. I guess everybody knows the LEDs are by far the most energy efficient lights. They'll last probably a lifetime, and they use very, very little electricity. So look around the house. We've been, over the years, as lights need changing, replacing them with LEDs. They're a lot more expensive to buy still, but they can, as I say, can last a lifetime and use very little electricity, so you'll save money over a long period of time. The biggest energy guzzling lights are the incandescent and the halogen ones, so get rid of those whenever you can. Also, anything giving off heat is using a lot of electricity. Things like the lights in bathrooms, the heat lamps in the ceiling, which keep you really warm, but don't leave them on for any longer than you have to, because they are using a lot of electricity, like a 1 or 2 bar radiator. Next is some things we can do to our homes. Some simple things, and as I said before, some more expensive things. So it's important to understand how heat flows through our home. So that diagram on the left shows heat moves in 3 ways: radiation, conduction and convection. So if you stand outside in the sun, you're getting the direct radiant heat from the sun, so that's making your body warm up and feel warm. Conduction is when the heat shines on an object, like a pane of glass, and the heat then transfers through. So if you, in a summer's day and the heat's shining on the glass, you touch the inside and it's hot. That's the conducted heat that's come through the glass. And convection is the circular motion of the heat energy in the air inside a room. So it's important to understand those principles, and also on the right-hand side, where energy moves in and out of a house. About 40%, 35% moves through the ceiling and the roof space, 10 to 20% walls, up to 25% windows, and the rest is air leakage. So understanding how a typical house operates in terms of energy movement gives you a really good idea about how to make good decisions about how to minimise the heat flow and obviously the energy consumption. So the roof and ceiling are the predominant ones, and the main thing in terms of ceilings is insulation. So the key to making a house comfortable in winter and summer without spending a lot of money on heating and cooling is for good insulation, both over the ceiling and under the roof sheeting. The third through roof and ceiling, and a quarter through windows. So single glazing is like having a small hole in the wall in terms of the heat that goes in and out of that. So putting curtains over windows keeps the heat in, stops it hitting the cold glass and then going straight outside. Double glazing is a really, really good way to go in terms of insulation in the roof and ceiling. Double glazing acts like an insulation, like a thermos flask on your windows, but it's expensive, although there are simple ways of adding plastic layers to the inside of windows to provide the effect of double glazing. In fact, if you want to do it on the cheap, you can stretch some plastic or some bubble wrap over the inside of windows. Will provide a level of insulation, nowhere near as good as proper double glazing. Double and triple glazing is the standard in most of Europe, so we're way behind here in terms of what we should be doing. Other things we can do with our home is to seal up the gaps. As I mentioned before, a lot of the air that moves in and out of the house is through air leakage, not through things being open, but around windows and under doors. There are a lot of gaps that will automatically lose heat. You can probably tell that on a cold day, on a hot day in summer, where you'll feel the warm air sneaking in around windows and under doors. So having proper seals around windows, sealing and corking up gaps around windows is important. Pelmets over windows is good because that stops the cold air circulating around the room, or the hot air circulating around the room, dropping down past the cold window and being cooled and coming out at the bottom of the curtain. There are a lot of things which are, again, as on the tips on that handout that are out in the foyer. If you haven't already picked one up, pick one up afterwards. Energy audits are things that can be done. There's an energy audit kit that can be done. You can borrow a kit from the libraries which will allow you to go around the house. There are some really good websites, which I'll get to in a minute, which can make a big difference. If you understand and follow those, you'll know where the air is moving, the hot air is leaking out. Also, when buying new appliances, as I said earlier, buy the most energy efficient ones, can make a difference. Just a little bit of some ideas around passive design principles of houses. Most Australian houses are badly designed in terms of energy efficiency. Back in 1952, the Commonwealth Government, 52 remember, Commonwealth Government produced a book saying designing houses for Australian climates. Most of what's in there has been ignored in the last, 70 odd years. So we are still designing houses that are leaking like sieves and also are poor on insulation, poor on proper designs to keep the energy and the heat in the winter and keep it out in the summer. So we've got a long way to go, but these principles of orientation, insulation and shade are basic ones that we should all be considering. So we can do things to retrofit our houses. We can do things to that don't necessarily cost a lot of money. Some things may cost a lot, but there are a whole lot of things that people can do if you are interested. And just finally, there is a lot of information. As I mentioned, the handout. There are a lot of government websites. There's another sheet out there with some list again, the websites, some books and some magazines that you can get to show you more information about what to do, and that energy toolkit which is available from the library. So if you want to talk about that, as I said, see me afterwards. If you've got any good ideas of things that you do, I'd love to hear from them, because I'm always keen to update the list of what I've got. And are there any burning questions as a result of this?
What about those portable, I'm not sure what they're called, they're like reverse hot and cold heaters that you can plug in, and you can get cold air if it's summer, or you can get hot air when it's winter.
Yep.
Are they quite expensive to run?
That's you can get the portable reverse cycle air conditioners. I think we must be talking if it's heating and cooling. I don't know offhand the exact figure, but if you look at the wattage, 1,000 watts is like a single bar radiator, and they go by 1,000 watts is a kilowatt. So look at the energy rating in the instruction manual of what any appliance is, and you can then check that against your energy bill to see how much you'll be charged for 1,000 watts. But this document and on the government websites will give you all of that information for a whole lot of different appliances. So you can actually do a really good check of what everything is costing in your house. Yeah.
Could I just add that regarding portable air conditioners, where you're seeking the air out through the window, there's quite a bit of discussion online, and the consensus seems to be that they are not very efficient at all. They're not the sort of 400% efficiency that a reverse cycle air conditioner, a larger system, gives you. They're around 1 for 1, which means you put a kilowatt in to get a kilowatt out.
Thanks. If there's no other burning questions, okay. Thank you.
Take a couple of minutes to take that in. If you came with someone or you've just met someone, maybe have a quick chat with them. There might be something that jumped out at you. If you're here with your partner, I don't want to start any arguments. Say, I told you so, 18's fine, we'll try and avoid that. But yeah, just take a couple of minutes to think about that or chat with someone, and then Lyndon will get started.
Okay, lots of good talking going on there, so maybe we can carry that on further later. I'm sort of putting this picture up to get you in the mood of just relaxing, because it's going to get fairly intense further along the way. Okay, so electricity and gas. Are your bills confusing? Yes. Good. That's what I've heard from a number of people. Are you getting the best deal? Do you know? From your supplier. So I'm here to offer you a bit of help. Okay. Let me just get organised. Let's do an outline. So I'll give you a bit of an introduction. Then we'll look at potential savings on your current bills. And this is the easy bit, or easiest bit. There is no easy bit in sorting out your energy bills, but this is the easiest bit. Then we'll talk about concessions and other rebates. It's not too difficult. Do any of you know of concessions that you have for electricity? Yeah. And then after the two easiest bits, we get to understanding the electricity and gas network. And my little picture here says, there's a can of worms, do we want to open it? So it's how we manage, firstly, how is it managed in Australia? And then we'll get on to electricity and gas suppliers, bill and rate definitions, some terminology explained. And I'm an Excel nerd, and I've developed a template that helps me work out the best deals for both electricity and gas. And as James mentioned, I've worked with our men's group here, and I'll sort of go into that a bit further. And then there's the differences between SA Power suppliers / retailers. And then I'll give examples of extra potential electricity savings. They're all potential, and I'll explain that further. Then I'll give a bit of a summary at the end, and you've got printouts. These are some small print documents. There's also questions for supplier negotiations, and that's a big thing, and we'll talk about that. And there's extra information, plus websites for a lot of the information that I'm sort of producing or talking about today. So, introduction. Now, this presentation is based on my experience, as James said. I've got no associations with any energy company. I'm not an engineer. I'm not an electrician. I'm not a solar person. It's just what I've learnt along the way. But I do have a science background. When I was working, I was an analytical chemist, and I like to find out how things work. And so I got started and developed this way of evaluating various suppliers. And back in March, I presented this to our men's group. About 20 guys come along, and I've been working with 13 households to identify potential savings on their energy bills. You may also have knowledge which you can share along the way as well. Okay, who's finding life complex? You got computers, you got your phones, you got insurance, you got your home loans, you got cost of living now. What about managing your electricity and gas requirements? So where do you begin? So how do you manage your power needs? Probably just before I get too far down the track, who has solar panels? Fair number. Who has a solar battery? Okay, a few. Who has smart meter? Know what that is? Who has the old analogue? Okie doke. All right. There's a good splattering. We'll try and address just that information there has made it so complex because everybody's needs are different. So how do we manage power needs? So I'm going to look at, are you eligible for concessions and rebates? Do you know what type of contract you have with your current supplier? Anybody know what it is? Yeah, a few do. We'll define them and we'll try and explain how it works. And do you know what rates you're paying? There's a few. Okay. Okay. Did anybody watch the cost of living special on 7 News Spotlight about 3 weeks ago? Anybody? Oh, that's good. Because part of it, I don't know whether you know Koshi, he's sort of on TV all the time. He kept, in the advertising leading up to it, he said, I've got a helpful hint. Bring along your bills, your electricity bills. And that's all he said in the lead up to it. Then on the night, they kept referring to him and he'd say, make sure you got your bills. And it wasn't until the end of the night that he dropped this little pearl of wisdom. But I'd been telling my guys back since March about this pearl of wisdom. Does anybody know what the pearl of wisdom is? And those that I'm working with aren't allowed to say. Okay. So, do any of you have your bills here? Okay, doke. If that looks like your bill, the red one is the bill amount. Is that all you really look at? How much you've got to pay every quarter or month? the big number? Well, there should be a little box that I've highlighted in blue that if we zoom in on that, it's a bit hard to read, but what it says, could you save money on another plan with your current supplier? And if I read out that section there, this is one of the people I was working with. It says, based on your past usage, our SA Simply Energy Saver discount may cost you up to $954.32 less per year than your current plan. So all you have to do is ring them up and say, put me on it. Yeah, that's all that's required, and they have to do it. And there's a little sentence down the bottom. The Australian Energy Regulator requires us to include this information. So as of this financial year, they have to let you know if you could be on a better bill, a better price. And if they're not, let me know, because I've been talking with the Australian Energy Regulator, and they said, let us know, give me pictures of people's bills, but there is a proviso there, and I'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so the Energy Regulator requires that, and it began this financial year that they had to do this for everybody. Okay, so what is the outcome? So with the 13 guys or households that I've been working with, I pulled together all the current power providers for them, and I came up with this list. And on their bills, it varied from, that's the list. Now, there were two households that were on the best deal. They couldn't provide anything better. But there are also two people that were over $900 they could be paying less per year if they had contacted their particular supplier. And it ranged anything between that $0 and $900. So that's the first easy bit. You can do that straight away. But we'll take it further. Okay, we'll look at concessions. The South Australian website, if you click on that website, it comes up with all the concession finders, with all the different cards. There's the pension concession card, the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card, Seniors Card, yeah, a whole range. Now, I'm only going to be talking about the pension card, which means if you're a partial pensioner or a full pension, you can get up to, you can see a little brackets, 11 potential concessions. And they are, you could have a cost of living concession, you could have emergency services levy concession. The one that I'm most interested in today is the energy one, and there are 3 levels, and I'll show you what they are on the next slide. And those other cards that I've just circled, they also have energy concessions available, the same energy concessions available. Now, the little seniors card, all it's supposedly to be used for is for transport and other concessions for going to films and all other things that they provide. But I, in my negotiations, was able to use that with one particular person and get an extra energy concession as if they were a pension card. Now, I've just talked to somebody else and they haven't been able to wrangle the same thing, so it depends who you talk to from the same company and how well it actually goes. But I'll keep working on that one. Now, to apply, I think we've missed it. There's a website in my printout and a phone number that's often helpful to actually help you work out all of those particular concessions. Okay, so what are the energy ones? Firstly, within South Australia, these are ongoing, yearly, supposedly. First one is the energy bill concession from the South Australian Government. And it's up to $274 a year, and that will be in place as of this July. It was a bit less this current year, and it's paid directly into your account on a quarterly basis. So it'll just show up. You don't have to do anything if you've registered through the website and filled in the forms. So that's the first one. So you could be getting that already. The next one is a really interesting one. It's the South Australian Concessions Energy Discount Offer. And it guarantees 17% off your electricity and 11% off your natural gas, both for the usage and the supply charges. What the government did at some point, they put out a tender to all the electricity companies for them to provide a rebate or a concession to concession card holders. And Origin won the contract. So Origin now has this, and it's available to all concession card holders. You just have to go ring them up and ask that you want the 17% for your electricity and prove that you're a concession card holder. But it's only available from Origin. No other company can do that. They can reduce their prices if they want, but this is sort of set in concrete. It's ongoing and it has special requirements for it that there are no late payments and a whole lot of other things that are identified. The third one is called the Energy Bill Relief Rebate, and this was from the federal government, and that's changing. As of this year, it was $500 a year. You'd get $125 automatically in your bill or off your bill each quarter. If you get monthly, I'm not sure when it actually comes, whether it still comes every quarter. But as of this year, we have heard that the federal government's going to give a concession to everybody of $300. Now, I'm not sure at this stage whether the 500 is going to disappear and you're just going to get the 300. I still haven't been able to find out about that at this stage. Okie doke. Now, other payments. These are sort of one-off payments. There's a guaranteed service level payment, and this is governed by the SA Power Network. And if we have a power failure, which like we did, was it about November 2022 when we had that huge storm and everybody lost power up here we lost it for about 4 or 5 days. And what happens is they've got a table that they will pay you a certain amount depending on how long your power's out. So we were out for greater than 60 hours, most of us. So what ended up happening is we got a payment of $300. Again, that goes straight into your energy bill and comes off your what you have to pay. And that should show up. There should be a little line in your bill at some point. Mine showed up. It was on 12th of 11th, 22 was when the storm was. I got the rebate on the 28th of August, 2023. So it was quite a while later, but the line was there. The thing to remember is that it's a one-off payment, so you think, oh, I've got negative, didn't have to pay anything this month. But if you hadn't noticed that, that one-off payment won't happen anymore and your bills could go back up again. So it's something to be aware of. The next one I only found recently was Energy Electricity Payment Scheme. The SA government scheme to help people through you have to work through a financial advisor if they have an electricity debt or they're at risk of their electricity being disconnected, or it has already been disconnected. And what they can do from July 24th, 2024, you can apply for up to $800 to help pay that bill off, but it's only available once every 2 years. So that's something, if you know somebody in need of that sort of support. Okay, the last one was the Retail Energy Productivity Scheme. Again, this is a South Australian government incentive, and what they've done, they have developed REPS activities, which is this list here, and it involves some of the things Andrew was talking about, lighting and water heating. You can get concessions or get groups to actually help you in those sorts of areas. What I was able to do, because I have solar panels and a battery, if you are, sorry, just go back. If you are part of a VPP, anybody know what a VPP is? Yes, virtual power plant with a battery system, and it's a approved VPP by the government. You can apply for a rebate on your battery, and I was able to receive $880 back for my purchase price of my battery. It's up to $1,000, and it depends on the size of the battery that you install. So they're all the incentives that you can look up and be a part of. I've highlighted one, the time of use. It is, what's the word? The regulators for Australia have decided that by 2030, all households will have time of use systems with a smart meter. That's what they're aiming for. So that's something to be aware of. And these are, at the moment, if you don't have a smart meter, you can get your current supplier to install it for you for free. And that has been done with a few people that I've been working with. All right. Moving on. Okie doke. If you thought that was difficult, now it gets really... I have actually opened the can of worms now. And...
Excuse me, Dean.
Yeah.
Just on the previous one, when you say in 2030 you're going to be a different setup, what does that actually mean?
By 2030, every household will have a smart meter and be working on time of use. That's what they're aiming for. So your analogue ones will be gone.
It also depends on your household. In our case, we was on a two-phase or three-phase system.
Yep.
And they came round to install a smart meter, but they couldn't do it at that stage.
Okay.
Because of and we had a similar problem with solar panels as well.
Right.
Which we haven't got.
Yep.
Because of that.
Okay. Yep.
I think one of the disadvantages of a smart meter is that they can cut your power off the event and overload, whereas if you haven't got one, they can't do it.
Yes.
Be careful if you put one in.
Yep. No worries. Yes. Sorry.
Well, a time of use meter allows them to give different rates. So you get, with origin, you got peak, you got off-peak,
Yeah, that's
that,
what I'm about to move on to. And what the advantages and disadvantages of that. But, okay, understanding the energy network. Okay, as of last week at the Australian Energy Week conference in Melbourne, the two energy watchdogs, which is Anna Collier and Justin Oliver, they're sort of the CEOs or chairs of the Australian Energy Market Commission and the Australian Energy Regulator. And they represent these groups, and they raised red flags in relation to how suppliers and retailers were pushing the boundaries of the rules around pricing. And so that the Commission would be now reviewing the rules around electricity pricing and looking to strengthen consumer protections. Now, what that means in reality, we'll have to wait and see, but that's where they have been hearing your concerns that things are so confusing, and they will start addressing that somehow. We'll find out what that means. Okay, so Australian Energy Regulator. They are the people who set what's called a default market offer. Australia, well, it's for South Australia, New South Wales and South East Queensland. They set the default market offer for the price of electricity that we buy. And it's set yearly, and it's about to change on the 1st of July, so that has implications on some of my stuff. But so, what is a default market? It's an electric price safety net that protects consumers from unjustifiably high prices. We probably think they're unjustifiably high already, but it's the maximum price an electricity company can charge customers on standard retail plans. And it's also called the reference price. You can see that at various companies. We charge you 7% less than the reference price, or 8% or 5%. So they're actually charging less. And it's set each year, and it won't change during the year. So the price, that reference price, stays the same the whole year. But the companies can play around with all the numbers if they're giving less than that, however much they like. And that's part of the rules that the group was saying they were stretching. Okay, so I don't expect you to read it. There's a copy in your sheet. But what I wanted to highlight was what I was saying before. Your retailer is required to tell you on the front page of your bill at least every 100 days if they can offer you a better deal. So that if you're on a monthly, you might only see it every 3 months or so. But if you're on a quarterly, it should be on every bill. The other thing was just to show you what the DMO is for this coming year. So for South Australian Power Network, it's $2,230 for 4,000 kilowatts of energy. And that's proportional. So if you use 8,000 in a year, they can charge you up to 4,400 per year. But of the 13 people that I've been working with, none of them have gone near that price because the companies are offering you less than the reference price. So they all juggle the numbers, which I'll explain in a minute, to make sure that they're under that. Okay. Choosing the best power price bill definitions. So what type of plan do you have? Do you have a single rate old meter, or even some of the smart meters on single rates? It should show you on your bill what you have. And this usually entails 3 to 4 different charge rates. That was my old meter. You had your meter, and I had a controlled load meter. So anybody remember J tariffs for heating your water? Okay, it's now called controlled load, and if you have a separate meter for that, you can use it to heat your water, you can use it to run your water filter on your swimming pool, you can use it to heat your underfloor heating. So that's what you can use controlled load for.
And charge electric vehicles?
Yes, okay. So the 4 rates, daily supply charge, that's the first one. That's what it costs for you to get the electricity to run past your house. So if you use no electricity in your billing period, you'll still be charged that single rate per day. So you'll always be paying something on your bill for that. The two rates, 1 and 2, well, it was supposed to be single rate, but as I've shown you there, there's 7 suppliers charge 2 rates, so that if you go above a certain amount per day, they'll charge you the higher rate. Now, at the moment in South Australia, and I'll show you in a second, there are 26 possible retailers you can buy electricity from, and there's 7 that charge you double rates. Okay. All right. Time of use. That's what was mentioned. Now, when I did my evaluation, I got my new smart meter and I got rid of my J tariff and I put my water heaters on timers, which I can then use or heat in the cheapest part of the day, but that's another thing. But I've got 5 different rates on my bill. And when I started doing the work with the group, I ended up with up to 12 different rates on your bill you could have. And what did that entail? That entailed a daily supply, your 3 peaks, peak, off-peak and shoulder, and they're the times that they're effective. So you have a different rate for each of those. There's now an EV charge. If you you can actually charge your car at a much cheaper rate. They charge 8 cents, some companies, to charge your vehicle, and usually between 12 midnight and 6 a.m. in the morning. One particular company now, it's because they've got so much energy in the day, they'll let you charge your car between 12 and 2 for absolutely nothing. And that's how they entice you to come with them. That's over at the moment, but I haven't kept up with that because I don't have a car. And then there's the controlled load, and wouldn't you know it, you can have a single one or you can have 3. And the 3 rates can be the same as what you pay your ordinary electricity for, and they change the times that are different from the other. So my software's getting so complex and I don't know whether it can handle it all. And there are some companies that will charge you a membership fee just because you're such a good people. And there's 3 suppliers that do that.
Are you going to name the guilty as you go?
Yeah, eventually. And if you've been on a plan and been with them for a long time and haven't changed, there are some companies that charge the GST after the effect, after your bill, so that if you're looking at your rate, you think it's 10% better than it actually is. Because, and again, I'll show you an example of that in a minute. And then there's the time of use feed-in, and you can have up to 2 rates, and you have a high rate, and then if you put in too much energy, they'll drop you to a lower rate on the same day. And every company does it differently, different rates, different limits. Okay, so here's one example of a bill, a monthly bill. There you've got 10 different rates that this person's paying. The little blue line, the little blue 8, tells you that's his membership fee, which he pays $21.14 a month. Ends up to be about $260 a year just to be a member of Energy Locals. Okay, the difference between peak and off-peak. Let's have a quick look. So this is an example of my usage of power, the blue, during a summer's day. The two big lines there, I heat my water overnight. Let's So there's the definitions, and there are the prices, okay? So I heat my water off-peak overnight this is 12 midnight to 12 midnight the next day, and I also prop up my water heaters. I've got 2 water heaters, and then this is sort of cooking and things at night and air conditioning at night. So if you were on a single rate, you'd be paying, for my company, I'm with Origin, and I'm not saying they're the best, but that's who I'm with. They charge me 39, if I was on a single rate, 39 cents a kilowatt hour. So at a peak on the time of use, you'd be 47 cents. But it's a lot cheaper on the shoulders and the off-peak. And I've done a calculation that it's equivalent to 26 cents, my usage on the time of use, compared with the 39 cents. So I have an advantage with a solar and a battery that I can get it cheaper using time of use. Okay, so my electricity supplier, I've chosen Origin. I use my template, government website, Energy Made Easy, which is a misnomer. It's Energy Made Easier. Every retailer, because Energy Made Easy was developed by the Australian Energy Regulator, and they've put every supplier has to give them their best deal that they can put on their website. So you only get one deal from the supplier. Okay, so my actual data, I'm showing you this data, but as of the 1st of July, I've got to change all my rates in all my sheets.
You should have postponed the election.
Yeah, but this was done for the guys back in January or February, March, so it's been helpful for the process. So this is part of my bill. You've got a printout of it in the sheet there. I don't expect you to see the numbers and know everything, but basically they're my 5 rates. Got a feed-in, daily supply, off-peak, peak and shoulder. They're my actual rates, and in the middle of the year, in July, my rates go up, and last year they went up by 25% from one to the next. But this year, it says it's going to go down, but it's not. From my data that I now have from some guys who have contacted me with their new rates. That's the time that it changed. Now, across here is just my extra credits, all those the Cicado discount, the government discount, my reimbursement and my battery. So that impacts the final net cost. Okay, so for me, my yearly bill is going to be $600. Moving on, comparing electricity suppliers. So there's 2 types of sheets that I developed, a time of use and a single rate. Sheets combine all the suppliers in one sheet rather than Energy Made Easy where you have your supply and then you've got to go into each one to get the rates, which is what I've then put into my spreadsheets. Note, it does not cost anything to swap suppliers. So you can swap as many times as you like, except if they're giving you an incentive that you have to be with them for a certain time to get the incentive. So,
And it might be worthwhile mentioning that you can swap rates within a supplier
yes,
as many times in the year as you like. If you've got solar, you might find a summer rate using high feed-in tariff and a winter rate with very low feed-in rates is a better option for you.
yeah. But you need to do the calculations, because when they give you a higher rate for the feed-in, they also put up the other rates. So they're not the same. So that's where my sheet is useful. It calculates all of those differences and comes up with... So this process of using my spreadsheet is just a starting point, because you have one supplier for each, or one plan for each supplier. Then what you need to do is talk to your particular supplier. And I've given a range of questions that you can actually use or adapt when you're talking with them in the back of that handout. And secondly, you can follow up with the other best dealers once you've done your evaluation. Okay, yeah, the printout will sort of show all of that. Now, I'm going to show you one of my households this was with Simply Energy. His was an easy, only had 4 rates on his plan, but he was with RAA. RAA was offering a 10% discount for being a member of RAA, and he got an 8% discount for paying his bill on time. So 18%. That's a good way to go. Except they were adding the GST on afterwards, so effectively it cancelled the 10% of the RAA discount. So he's effectively only getting an 8% advantage. Okay. So this is his bill, or this is his evaluation. So the orange, the one at the top, where are I? This along here is if he stayed on his current plan. They offered him $900 a better deal if he changed to this plan down here, using all of the rates, their rates that they had. I did a valuation with all the other suppliers, and we came up, he could be $1,400 better off rather than the $900. And we've gone down that track, haven't we? Okay. This is a sheet that you have, and this explains all the dirty linen, or whatever you want to call, of the various suppliers. So these are the 26 suppliers in South Australia, and tells you whether they do electricity and gas or just electricity. This is whether they add GST afterwards. The question marks is the companies. I haven't dealt with any of their bills, so I don't know. These are the companies that charge monthly fees. They can be $19 a month. Energy Locals is nearly 25, and Kogan's 129 a year. These are the companies that charge 3 controlled low rates, and if you're on that, find another supplier, because you're being diddled. And these are the more than 2 rates on the single, and it's a matter of evaluating how good that is. And these are the companies that are actually giving incentives up to the end of June, I think, to sort of come across to them, and it can be anything from $50 to $225 they'll give you free for staying with them or coming to them or whatever. Okay, we're getting there, nearly there. Okay, so this is my current Excel template. It now has options for handling 10 of the variations instead of the 5. The orange ones for the controlled load, that means that they are charging 3 rates, and to work out that final amount I have to develop, I've got another spreadsheet that I do the calculations to work out what the equivalent is to put into there. Okay, so just to give you a bit more, if we blow that up, still pretty hard to see, but you can see here's Energy Locals. It charges only 78 cents a day, daily supply. That's great. That's actually the cheapest one. But they're also the ones that charge you a membership fee. And that makes that equivalent to about $1.70. And just on Friday night, I got an email from one of my men who's got the new rates for this year. And this company, for this year, they've now upped their 78 to $1.31 supply charge. Admittedly, they've dropped all of these rates, but his feed-in tariffs for his time of solar, he was on 9.5 cents and 6 cents that were changed after 10 kilowatts installed. It's now dropped from 9.5 to 7, and the 10 kilowatts dropped to 8. After 8, it'll drop to the next rate, which is now 3 cents. So his 6.5's gone to 3, his 9.5's gone to 7. And that's why he's, let's just, we'll skip over that. That's why his bill will now be, on the new rate he'd only saved $33. The previous one's $1.59, but if he changes to Origin with a concession, he can save $475. Okay, summary. All right, we've looked at what we saved off your bill, but using my Excel spreadsheet, we can now increase the payback for you, and with the extra $300 that everybody's going to get from the Commonwealth Government, the potential savings is this. So, just a summary, if we total the savings on the blue is about 3,000. With my Excel spreadsheet, they can save up to 6,500, and with the extra 300, people can save up to 10,000 a year. That's the total of all of those. Okay, almost there. I also have done a gas sheet. The savings on gas is a lot less. It can change maybe $100, $200. A lot of them is just when they delete off the GST and fiddle the numbers a bit, and you get a bit of a plus from it all. So we can look at gas as well. And so summary, check your latest invoice, see if you're on the best plan, call them up, talk to them, use some questions that will be helpful. Let me know if you haven't seen a bill you haven't got a reduced rate on your bill. Check to see if you're eligible for concessions and rebates. Don't get caught up in the issues which I've identified in that sheet. Evaluate all the possible suppliers to get the best option. Now, I'm offering at the moment to help the first 5 who sign out by reviewing your bills for the new financial year, once the new financial year comes into play. Because I feel that's all I can do at the moment with the other 13 that I'm still working with. And we can see where it goes from there. But you can put your name and contact. If you just want to chat further, I'm happy to do that. But most of all, negotiate with your current supplier first and make them give you the best deal that you can get from them. And remember, it doesn't cost to change suppliers. There's no lock-in contracts now, and check during negotiation, but confirm that during negotiations. Okay, thank you. Oh, I'm supposed to ask, are there any prying questions? Yeah.
Question, the feed-in tariff that one receives, say, 6 cents per kilowatt hour. I'm wondering what happens to that power. Can the feed-in be taken up by the supplier and then sell it back to the consumer at 30 or 40 cents? What happens to that feed-in power? What does it charge back as to other people?
It's difficult to answer. I know, again, from the Mitcham Council / Shine Hub project that's on, where you can be connected to a VPP, is that power that can be taken out of your battery, and they then sell it to the retailers and make a profit on that, and you get some benefits out of that as well. So, but as far as the other, they probably just sell it off wherever, I think, unless somebody else knows something better.
By default, they have to sell it.
Yeah.
And unless they've got a battery themselves that can store it, they've got to sell it at the same time that you're buying it.
Yep.
Unless they can turn down their generator, which they probably do.
Yep. But I know with the Mitcham Council, the bigger proposal is to develop community batteries, and that's sort of in the process at the moment, so that the power that goes back and is stored in the community battery. And what the Mitcham Council is saying is that for people who can't get solar for whatever reason, that power can be used to, and it's also used to stabilise the grid. Okay, again, we'll be out yonder if you need to ask more. Oh, yes, go on. Yep.
You mentioned you've got a tick a box on your meter now where you can determine when your hot water service accesses the controlled load.
Yep.
You control when.
Yes.
Where do you get these boxes and how do you
Well, when I bought my solar panels, my electrician suggested it. So I put it in, and we've got 2 water heaters. They cost me $220 each. So he installed it and got it all working. So they're just timers, and I set the time when it heats. So I'm only heating it during my off-peak or my cheapest rate in the middle of the day. Yep. So I can put you in contact with the electrician who did it for me, the solar guy. Yep. Does that answer you?
It does. It was just that I've noted the times that on my bill when control the hours are, and I thought it was fixed. I didn't think you had any say over it. So what you're saying is yes, you do.
Well, I do. But I'm not on controlled load. I'm on the normal rate because I had that meter deleted. But if you are on controlled load, it's 24 hours, and they change the rates on it. Well, the 7 companies that do it that way. All the other companies charge one rate, and it's normally around 22 cents, 22 to 24. Whereas these combined ones can be anything from 25 to 35 once you average everything out with the 3 rates.
Can we show our appreciation again to Andrew and Lyndon for the effort they've put in? Tell you what, you're an Excel nerd after my own heart, Lyndon. Though I understand if all that data might seem a little overwhelming, it's almost like it's designed to be that way. That's a really handy hint though, isn't it? Koshi was a bit late to the party. You had it back in January, Feb about just making sure you see that on your bill and any things you can do from concessions. And then I suppose the big takeaway from me from that, even if that Excel, all the different rates is a bit overwhelming, is just to make sure you're looking at every part of the deal you're getting, isn't it? Like, because maybe, like Dindin said, it's a great rate, but then surprise, surprise, the daily supply charge is really high. Or it looks like it's a good rate, but then surprise, surprise, the GST is charged after the fact. So thank you so much for that. Yep.
I'll just throw one more in. With one of my people I was working with, I was looking at his gas bill. Look at your gas bills as well and make sure their meter readings make sense, because what happened with this particular person, just after winter, he got overcharged $540 for his gas, and he just paid it, but it was a struggle for him to pay it. But the company, his next bill came back and sort of refunded it. Oh, we've made a mistake with the reading, and they gave the money back, but he had to find the money in the first place.
We just wanted to open up this opportunity as a church for people to come along, because we think we want to serve our community. We thought it might be nice with that in mind to put on an afternoon tea, and I was thinking just buy some bickies or something like that, but then people around the church stepped up and have done some cooking. So there is a lovely afternoon tea out there if you're able to stay around and catch up with Andrew and Lyndon or talk with one another. We also do have the free barista coffee, which you might have put down an order when you came in, or you can still do one now. Just be aware it's a lot of people all at once, so it might take a little while to get out to you, but you're still welcome to take advantage of that. Bathrooms are up the ramp and then to the right through that room there. So thank you again, guys, and if you're able to hang around and take advantage of that afternoon tea, you're very welcome to. Thanks.